You picked betrayal. Now enjoy the hell I created just for you. In the opulent grand ballroom of the Pinnacle Grand, Chicago's most prestigious hotel, I accepted a torrent of congratulations with a smile. Today marked my company's public debut. The day we finally rang the opening bell. Every fiber of my being, every waking moment, had been poured into reaching this milestone. At that very instant, my beloved wife, Claire, gently stroked her stomach, her gaze fixed on me with an almost ethereal softness. Yet, beneath that tender veneer, I sensed an unreadable depth. Perhaps it was for the child she carried. A child whose father was not me. It didn't matter. You crave the company? It's yours. The family fortune? Take it all. Just never, ever regret your choice once you embrace betrayal. The gates of hell will swing wide for you. Mr. Hayes, what are your plans for the company post-IPO? Mr. Hayes, are the rumors true about a major overseas expansion? I fielded each question politely. Thank you, everyone. Please enjoy the evening. Claire had been by my side the entire time, 5 months pregnant, playing the part of the supportive, graceful spouse to absolute perfection. Her performance would have been flawless, had it not been for the fleeting glances she kept exchanging with Mark Jensen, our company's CEO. They were instantaneous, a split-second connection. Then they'd quickly look away. But how could I not notice? I felt a subtle frown crease my brow. A faint scent of men's cologne lingered on Claire. And it wasn't my brand. Mark Jensen across the room wore a wide plastic grin, and the very same fragrance. But now wasn't the moment to shatter the illusion. A game of cat and mouse is always more compelling than simply catching them in the act. After the gala concluded, Claire linked her arm through mine, her voice a sweet purr. Ethan, a few of the girls want to get together. I'm just going to stop by for a little while. You head on home. Don't worry, I won't be late, she added, gently smoothing a crease on my shirt. I didn't ask which friends. I didn't ask why they were meeting so late. Liars always have their justifications. Questioning them is futile. I simply smiled. But in the space she couldn't see behind my eyes, a storm was gathering. I stroked her hair, my voice oozing manufactured tenderness. Okay, but you're carrying precious cargo now. Don't overdo it. Her expression remained as gentle as ever. I won't. I promise it'll be quick. Sitting in the back of the car, I closed my eyes. My mind replayed a montage of laughable moments, a highlight reel of her false affection. I found myself questioning if any of it had ever been genuine. All those vows, all those promises whispered in the dark. How many were lies? I had given her the wedding of her dreams, a life of unparalleled luxury. In return, I received the coldest betrayal. Why, Claire? Oh, Claire, didn't your heart ache even a little when you did this? Why did you have to betray me? 6 months prior, my assistant casually mentioned, Mr. Hayes, I just saw Mrs. Hayes downstairs. Was she dropping off one of her famous lunches for you? The comment was innocent, but it landed like a stone. 5 minutes earlier, she had texted me. Something came up. Meeting Sarah for some shopping. Can't make it today. Make sure you eat. Oh, she was probably just heading to the shops. Which way did she go? My assistant then recounted what he saw. The more he spoke, the heavier my heart became. Claire wasn't with a friend. She had gone into a bakery alone and left carrying a cake box. No one in our family had a birthday coming up. There were no anniversaries, no special occasions to celebrate. A cake. Once the seed of doubt is planted, it inevitably sprouts. I didn't actively seek answers, but I began to put distance between us. 3 months ago, Claire announced she was pregnant. During that period, we'd barely been intimate. When she confronted my surprised gaze, she was completely composed. Ethan, remember that night you were so drunk? I guess that's all it took. We're finally having a baby. The timeline seemed to fit. But that night, while I'd had too much to drink, I was far from blacking out. When I got home, she had tried to initiate something, but I was exhausted. I feigned a deeper intoxication than I felt. Nothing happened. My heart sank to the floor. I had my assistant investigate. The answer, unsurprisingly, was Mark Jensen. Over the past few years, Claire and Mark had grown closer. In the office, they were friendly but always maintained a professional distance. Mr. Hayes, here is the information you requested. My assistant handed me a thick manila envelope. Thank you. You've done well. He said nothing, his eyes scanning our surroundings. For a while I'd had the unnerving feeling I was being watched. Anything I did related to Claire, my movements were somehow predicted with perfect accuracy. No matter how spontaneous my plans, she always seemed to be one step ahead. Every time I got close to the truth, the trail would go cold, wiped clean just before I arrived. It wasn't normal. My schedule was private. For someone to anticipate my moves and erase evidence meant a spy in my camp. To smoke them out, I had my assistant leak a series of false leads. We identified the mole and quietly let them go. Then my assistant came to me. He told me Claire had approached him, offering a substantial sum to act as her informant. Unfortunately for her, the price she offered was an insult. I've been playing the fool ever since, letting her believe I'm completely in the dark. Everything she knows is what I want her to know. My assistant accepted her money on my instructions. We even considered a bonus. Still, I wasn't taking any chances. I hired a top-tier security firm, paying a premium for a dedicated team. Their services included not just bodyguards and drivers, but a full suite of investigative support. I paid them a price Claire and Mark could never hope to match. I opened the envelope. The file was thick, filled with detailed logs of every interaction between them. Professionals are worth every penny. A smirk pulled at my lips. If you want to play, let's play for real. Take me home, I said to the driver. Yes, sir. In a romance suite at a downtown hotel, Mark held Claire in his arms. Her face was flushed, a clear sign of what had just transpired. Is the baby okay? We were a little rough, Mark murmured, stroking her belly. Claire giggled, basking in his touch. He's fine. The doctor said he's perfectly healthy. A little fun now and then is okay. Her tone then turned serious. By the way, are you sure Ethan doesn't suspect anything? He seems so busy lately, but I can't shake the feeling he's onto us. Mark smugly held up his phone and kissed her stomach. Don't worry, he said with a cold laugh. His most trusted assistant is on our payroll now, and I just threw a massive project his way. He won't have a spare moment to think about anything else for the next 3 to 5 months. Claire visibly relaxed. As much as she wanted their plan to succeed, she was terrified of being caught. Good. You need to speed things up on your end, too. Mark toyed with her long fingers, his voice casual. Relax. I've already won over several board members. With your help and by buying up more stock, we'll have a controlling interest in no time. A year tops, he continued. And we'll push Ethan Hayes out of the boardroom for good. He'll be a broke nobody. The best part? He has no idea he's the one funding the stock purchases. Huh. Then the company will be ours. It was a beautiful daydream, even though night had already fallen. Claire, infected by his confidence, laughed, her voice husky. The two fell into another passionate kiss. I sat at my home office and opened the safe. Inside were stock certificates and several contracts. Looking at one document in particular, a cold smile spread across my face. They really couldn't resist the bait. The company just went public, and they're already making their move. Did they truly believe their pathetic little scheme was a secret? Before, I was defenseless against you because I loved you. Now, every dollar you touch is just another shovel of dirt on your own grave. You wanted these stock certificates? Fine. My phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. It was one of my people. Mr. Hayes, the offshore corporation has been registered as requested. We used a third-party intermediary, so it's untraceable back to us. Also, the team you wanted is assembled and ready. Everything is secure. Excellent. By the time I walk away, all that will be left for Mark and Claire is an empty shell. No money, no people. Let's see how they play the game then. That's when the real fun begins. One more thing. Mark Jensen is buying up shares privately at a premium. What are your orders? I nodded. This was exactly what I wanted. Perfect. Sell him my entire stake at a 20% markup. The night deepened, but sleep was the furthest thing from my mind. In the dark office, the only light was the cherry-red tip of my cigar. All these years. What a joke. Ethan, I'm finally going to be your wife. We'll be together forever. Okay, Ethan, the company is going public. I knew you were the best. You've worked so hard for this family. Honey, I'm pregnant. Do you want a boy or a girl? What a pity. Of all those sweet words, I wonder how many were true. It doesn't matter. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut. As I expected, Claire didn't come home. She sent me a token text message. Honey, it got too late and the baby was acting up, so I'm just crashing at Sarah's. Love you. The boardroom was filled with the company's shareholders. Today was the first board meeting since the IPO. I looked around the table and felt a bitter irony. I had led these people, worked myself to the bone to take this company public. Yet, when Mark started buying up shares at inflated prices, not a single one of them gave me a heads up. So disloyal. A little bit of profit was all it took to buy their silence. Fine. If they were so greedy for scraps, then let's just burn the whole thing down. Shaking the thoughts from my head, I called the meeting to order. Ladies and gentlemen, with the company now successfully listed, we will proceed with the planned expansion into the overseas market. This announcement caused no surprise. It was all part of the established business plan, and today was merely a formality. I scanned the room. What I said next, however, made their jaws drop. I will be personally leading this expansion effort. To that end, I am creating a new position of acting COO to handle all domestic operations in my absence. I propose that our current VP, Mark Jensen, temporarily assume this role. My words hit Mark like he just won the lottery. He could barely contain his glee. The position he'd been coveting for years, I had just handed to him on a silver platter. The other board members naturally had no objections. As we left the meeting, I clapped him on the shoulder. The company is in your hands, brother. I trust you. Ignoring his fumbling attempts at expressing loyalty, I headed straight for my villa. If we're going to put on a show, we might as well do it right. Let's see who the better actor is. Honey, don't work yourself so hard, Claire said, her eyes red-rimmed as if she were genuinely reluctant to see me go. You can delegate. You're about to be a father, you know. But I didn't miss the flicker of triumphant joy in her eyes. I pulled her into a gentle embrace and whispered reassurances. Claire, I know this isn't fair to you, but it's a critical time for the company. As the majority shareholder, I have to see this through, but I promise I'll make as much time for you as I can. Call me for anything and I'll be on the next flight back. Besides, it's just more travel. I'll still be home often. Then I added the finishing touch. And when the baby is born, I promise I'll have a big surprise for him. We stood there wrapped in a tender embrace, each of us playing our part in a well-rehearsed deception. I stood by the window of the penthouse apartment, swirling a glass of red wine. The apartment wasn't in my name. Claire knew nothing about it. For the foreseeable future, this would be my base of operations. All the pieces were in place. All I needed was the right moment to strike. Since Claire had betrayed me, I had no intention of leaving her a dime. She wanted to transfer assets? I'd help her do it. She wanted to help Mark buy up shares? I'd help with that too. Those soon-to-be worthless shares were now all sold. Not only had I liquidated all the assets in my own name, but Mark's assets had also found their way under my control. Mr. Hayes, what are your instructions? My assistant looked pleased to see me in good spirits. He'd been with me since the beginning for 8 long years. He was the one person I could trust. How's Mark doing? Is he still playing cards? A cold smile touched my assistant's lips. He's deep in it, sir. We've arranged for him to win just enough to get hooked, but his losses are mounting. He's taking the bait. By my calculations, I had about 6 more months of this charade. Proceed with the plan. We still have a few months to go. Don't let the fish off the hook. Over the next 6 months, I rarely returned to the villa. Claire seldom called. Last month, she gave birth to a big, healthy boy. On the surface, I was overjoyed, but I never once brought up the birth certificate, and she just as conveniently never mentioned it either. It was time for the endgame. Standing in the boardroom again after half a year, I felt a wave of nostalgia. Many of the familiar faces were gone. They must have sold their shares to Mark. Just as I took out my report to update the board on my 6 months of progress, Mark cut me off. All right, that's enough. No need to read that. He was practically beaming with self-satisfaction. Mark, watch your tone, I said coolly. I'm still the CEO of this company. You're merely the acting COO. My comment was met with a round of snickers. Ethan, one of the board members said, The main item on today's agenda is your removal as CEO. For the past 6 months, Mark chimed in. You've claimed to be expanding overseas, yet you've failed at every turn. Your incompetence has cost this company hundreds of millions of dollars. We've all agreed that you're no longer fit to lead. The other board members watched me like I was a character in a play, their expressions confirming they were all on Mark's side. Perfect. This was exactly what I wanted. Still, I put on a show of disbelief and anger. Mark, do you have any idea what you're saying? My feigned outrage only drew more mockery. Ethan, you leveraged your shares, didn't you? Mark asked, his voice dripping with condescension. I let my face go pale. You're too arrogant, he continued, pressing his advantage. You mortgaged everything for your overseas pipe dream, and as luck would have it, I was the one who bought up all those shares. I am now the majority shareholder, and you are nothing. The board voted. The result was, of course, unanimous. I walked out of the company I built, looking for all the world like a defeated man. When I got back to the villa, Claire had just put the baby to sleep. The sky outside was overcast, matching the grim expression on her face. Ethan, I want a divorce. I looked at her familiar face and managed a pained smile. Claire, why? What's going on between you and Mark? I sat on the sofa, my gaze cold. She didn't speak. She simply pushed a document across the coffee table. A divorce agreement. I flipped it open. The terms were simple. They had to be. Over the past year, she had systematically siphoned off every asset she could touch. Our shared marital property was now effectively zero. Claire, after all these years, was it all a lie? She finally looked up at me, a chilling emptiness in her eyes that hurt more than I expected. I thought I was past it, but my heart still ached. No, she said. I did love you once, but you have no passion for life. Think about it, Ethan. Since we got married, when did you ever make time for me? You were always working, always at some business dinner. Did you ever once think about how I felt? She was shouting now, her voice filled with a desperate, theatrical rage. I remained silent. I already knew the answer, didn't I? I just wanted to hear her say it. I admit I betrayed you with Mark, she screamed. But so what? He's fun. He makes time for me. You're nothing but a machine. Her eyes were a storm of conflicting emotions. After her outburst, she fell silent, simply pushing the divorce papers closer to me again. You've been planning this for a while, haven't you? The assets are all gone. A clean job. At this, a flash of panic crossed her face. She must have thought she'd covered her tracks perfectly, but she quickly regained her composure. I didn't press the point. I cleanly signed my name. Fine, I'll sign. We'll go our separate ways. Just don't regret this. Without another look at her, I turned and walked out. This villa, which Claire had already mortgaged, was no longer my home. In the car, my assistant glanced at me with concern. Mr. Hayes, are you? I waved him off. I'm fine. It's time. Launch the plan. Everything was going according to the script I had written. And yet, now that it was real, a small part of me still felt the sting of loss. No matter. The curtain was about to fall. Mark was an incompetent fool. Claire had never been involved in the business. The victory they were celebrating was nothing more than the final manic dance before their demise. Over the past year, I hadn't just sold my shares. My overseas projects were actually wildly profitable. The shell corporations I had registered were merely conduits. All business was routed through them, not the parent company. The hundreds of millions of dollars in losses were, in fact, profits that had been transferred to my new company's accounts. Mark never noticed. Lured in by my people, his gambling bets grew larger and larger. While he clung tightly to his now worthless company shares, he had lost over $200 million. To get back in the game, he'd used every excuse in the book to mortgage all of Claire's parents' assets as well. The moment my divorce was finalized, the debt crisis would erupt. Mark and Claire would be dragged down to a hell from which they could never escape. My anger had faded. All that talk of love and romance. The naive impulses of a younger man. A month later, the divorce was finalized. No mess, no delays. I had to admit, when a woman is ruthless, she is truly ruthless. I tossed the divorce decree into a drawer and glanced at my assistant. No words were needed. He nodded and left the room. A few days later, News of the company's financial crisis exploded online. The reports of failed overseas investments had already left Mark scrambling. His relationship with Claire had hit rock bottom. Their fantasy of a perfect life together had evaporated. I don't know if Claire regretted her choices. I only knew that they were fighting constantly, buried in problems at the office. Mark no longer had any tenderness for her. All that was left was a growing coldness and an empty, silent villa. He barely paid any attention to their son. Now I had a more important job, debt collector. I formally demanded repayment of the $200 million loan Mark had taken out. It may have been a gambling debt, but the game was cash only, and the IOUs he signed were all personal loans legally binding. With his name on the paperwork and Claire's parents as guarantors, the debt naturally fell to them. 2 weeks later, an enraged Claire stormed into Mark's office. The scene that greeted her sent her into a blind fury. She snatched a stack of files from his desk and hurled them across the room. A voluptuous woman, his newly hired secretary, was perched on Mark's lap. Their clothes were disheveled. It was obvious what they'd been doing. Caught in the act, Mark looked annoyed, but not the least bit flustered. "What are you doing here? This is my business. Stay out of it. Go home and take care of the kid." Claire was broken, her face a mask of despair. "Mark, how could you do this to me? You said you loved only me. Why would you betray me?" Mark patted the secretary on the rear, signaling for her to get up. He straightened his clothes with an air of utter indifference. "Claire, you're not a child. How can you still believe in that fairy tale crap? You once said you only loved Ethan, didn't you? And you still betrayed him. Besides, I give you plenty of money. Stop making a scene." His shameless words almost made her pass out. It took her a long moment to find her voice. "Mark, I betrayed Ethan for you. I transferred my family's assets for you so you could take over the company. And this is how you treat me? You have the nerve to talk about money? Look around you. The company is about to go bankrupt. And you're here playing around with her? And all that money you've been taking from my family? Where did it all go?" Her question made Mark visibly uncomfortable. He was trapped. Who could have imagined that in a few short months, a newly public industry darling would become a laughingstock on the verge of collapse? And he had kept his gambling problem a secret from Claire the entire time. "Claire, I was just stressed, okay? It was a one-time mistake. I promise it won't happen again. Just give me some time. I'll fix the company's problems." This wasn't a crisis of conscience. He had just remembered that her parents still had some assets that hadn't been mortgaged yet. "Have some shame, Mark. I know exactly what you're thinking, and it's not going to happen. You won't get another penny from my parents." Hearing this, Mark dropped the act. His face twisted into a grotesque snarl. "You bitch. Do you have any idea what you're doing? You're going to bankrupt us." The word bitch was the final blow. Claire's world shattered. She closed her eyes in agony, not hearing another word he said. After a long moment, she opened them again. They were completely devoid of emotion. "I was wrong," she said, her voice hollow. "I never should have left, Ethan. Mark, you're going to get what you deserve." She turned and walked away without looking back. Soon Claire and Mark received a court summons. Her parents were named in the lawsuit as well. "I was done playing games. I filed a suit directly. Mr. Jensen, you've been served." His assistant looked like he was about to be sick as he delivered the news. Mark frowned. He was out of personal funds. His only option was to embezzle from the company. "How much cash do we have on hand?" The assistant hesitated, then pulled a financial statement from his folder. "We just received a small investment. According to this, we can free up $30 million without crippling operations. Here are the financials." Mark slammed his hand on the desk. "I don't care about that. What is the absolute maximum you can get me?" He was past the point of reason, a gambler who had lost everything and was willing to bet the house on one last hand. $180 million. But the company will be insolvent within a week. And sir, that's a felony. Mark waved him away. He had to pay the debt. The people I connected him with were not forgiving. If he didn't pay, pieces of him would be vacationing in different parts of the world. As the assistant was leaving, he paused. "Sir, if I may, Mrs. Hayes's family still has considerable assets. Perhaps." Mark just gestured for him to leave. but his eyes were wild with desperation. "I'm not going to die," he muttered to himself. "As soon as I pay this off, I'm gone." "Claire, you bitch," he hissed. "Your parents are sitting on a fortune. Why won't you give it to me?" In the villa, Claire sat alone in the dark living room. She couldn't remember the last time Mark had come home. The ringing of her phone startled her out of her stupor. She was already crying. "Dad, what is it?" She always tried to put on a brave face, especially for her parents. "Honey, it's nothing. I just wanted to let you know we got that investment for Mark. Now you need to talk to him. This is everything we have left." "You know," her father rambled on, "you and Ethan were so good together. I don't know why you had to get a divorce." On the other end of the line, Claire was frozen in shock. "Dad, what are you talking about? Don't give him the money. Don't do it. We'll be ruined." Frantically, she pieced together what had happened. Mark, using her name, had convinced her parents to mortgage their entire family business and take out massive bank loans. She dropped the phone, her body slumping. She sat there in the dark, numb. After a long while, she picked up her phone and called Mark's assistant. Calling Mark himself was pointless. He had already blocked her number. "Tell Mark to return my parents' money. If he doesn't, I'm reporting him to the police for fraud." She hung up and collapsed onto the floor, covering her face as uncontrollable sobs racked her body. 3 days later, Mark transferred the full $200 million into the loan company's account. When he saw that I was the one representing the company to sign the final papers, the color drained from his face. He was seething but kept his head down, silent. He no longer had the capital to challenge me. Claire was there too, desperate to recover her family's assets. But Mark gave her no opening. When she saw me, and I didn't even grant her a passing glance, she nearly collapsed. Suddenly she screamed, "Ethan Hayes, this was you. It was all you, wasn't it?" Her shout drew stares from everyone in the room. They all looked at her with disapproval. I heard her but chose to ignore it. She lunged at me, a wild look in her eyes, but my bodyguards intercepted her before she could get close. Back in my hotel suite, I sipped my wine and looked out at the city lights. I'd already sold the penthouse. Since I had no plans to stay in Chicago, there was no point in keeping property here. With the capital I now possessed, I could start fresh anywhere in the world. I just hadn't decided where yet. "Mr. Hayes, Claire Hayes is in the lobby. She's been waiting for a while and insists on seeing you." My assistant's voice interrupted my thoughts. "Let's go. It's time to end this." In the hotel lobby, I stood before her, my expression a blank mask. "Miss Shun, you wanted to see me?" I used her maiden name. Her face was a portrait of sorrow. She bit her lip. "Ethan, did you really have to be so cruel?" I let out a short, cynical laugh. "Miss Shun, that's a strange question. A debt was owed. A debt was paid. It's the way the world works. Mark borrowed the money. I didn't force him. Your family willingly co-signed the loan. I didn't force them either." My voice was detached, cold. How did she have the audacity to come to me when she was draining our accounts, when her family was bankrolling Mark's scheme to ruin me? Wasn't this outcome already written in stone? All I could say was that I was lucky. If I had discovered her betrayal any later, if I had made a single misstep, I would be the one hunted by debt collectors today. She didn't seem to know why she was here or what she wanted. She was on the verge of breaking. "Ethan, I was wrong. Please forgive me," she pleaded. "I regretted it a long time ago. I never had the courage to tell you. Come back. We can start over. Please." She looked at me with desperate hope, as if she was still living in a world where a single soft look from her would make me give her the moon. "Claire, don't disgust me," I said flatly. "You're a family of 3 now. It has nothing to do with me." As I said it, my stoic composure wavered for just a second. Not out of regret or pity. It was the sting of knowing how worthless the love I once gave her truly was. "Ethan, please let me explain." She dropped to her knees, her face a mess of tears and pleading. As she reached for my legs, I stepped back. The thought of her touch repulsed me. "Explain what, Claire? Did you think your little secrets were so well kept? Did you think using your friends as an alibi would fool me forever? You can hide things once or twice, but over time the truth always comes out. Did you never notice how I started letting you get away with everything? Those papers you had me sign. Did you really think I didn't know you were transferring assets? Did you think I built an empire from nothing on dumb luck? You came home smelling of another man and didn't even bother to hide the evidence. You are disgusting. I paused, watching the color drain from her face. This is better, isn't it? I continued, the words I'd held back for so long finally pouring out. You wanted the shares? I gave them to you. You wanted the company? I gave that to you too. I didn't even fight you on the assets. You got everything you wanted. So why the regret now? Does it matter? Claire, you have to live with the choices you make. With that, I turned and walked toward the elevators, leaving her crumpled on the lobby floor. I could hear her muttering to herself, her voice a broken whisper. He knew. He knew all along, and he just let me do it. When a distraught Claire finally returned to the villa, her family was waiting. Honey, what happened? Did Ethan agree to let us off the hook? Her father asked, his eyes wide with hope. Claire looked at the expectant faces around her and felt a surge of bitter irony. They had all participated in the scheme, but now they were cowering behind her, pushing all the blame onto her shoulders. When she didn't answer, her father stepped forward, his voice rising with anxiety. Say something. You and Mark were the ones who betrayed him. This has nothing to do with us. Why is the court seizing our property? Claire laughed, a cold, empty sound. Nothing to do with you? You're the one who introduced me to Mark. You're the one who encouraged me to be with him. You said Ethan was too strong-willed, too hard to control. You wanted someone more obedient. And what did you get? A wolf. You were happier than anyone when Ethan was kicked out of his own company. You took a cut of the shares. You mortgaged our family's assets to fund him. That was your choice. Now that it's all gone wrong, you want to walk away clean? Not a chance. Her words nearly gave her father a stroke. He raised his hand, his fingers trembling. You ungrateful child. I'll kill you. But the blow never landed. He saw the look in her eyes, utterly lifeless, like a marionette with its strings cut. Mark, who had been watching from the side, decided it was his cue to leave. He quickly started putting on his jacket. Mark, where do you think you're going? Claire's voice was flat. You think you can run? He shoved her aside violently. Get off me, Claire. I was with you for the money. Did you really think you were that special? Only an idiot like Ethan would have ever put you on a pedestal. Now the company's broke and your family is broke. You think I'm going to stick around and share your debt? Seeing the utter contempt on his face, Claire smiled. It was a smile more tragic than any tears. She closed her eyes, her hand trembling, unseen by Mark. Her fingers closed around the handle of a fruit knife on the coffee table. Just as I was finalizing my affairs, preparing to leave Chicago for good, my assistant entered my suite. He hesitated at the door. What is it? His expression told me something had happened. We just got word, sir. Mark Jensen is dead. Claire killed him. She stabbed him. I nodded slowly. This I had not predicted, but in a way it made sense. Claire thought that by divorcing me, she would gain control of a corporate empire. Instead, the company was bankrupt, her family was ruined, and she was drowning in debt. An act of extreme violence was not entirely surprising. She's asking to see you, my assistant added. She says it's the last time. I nodded again. At the correctional facility, we faced each other through a thick pane of glass. Ethan, she said, her voice weak. You came. Thank you. I didn't respond. I had no interest in empty pleasantries. I was here for one reason, to close this chapter for good. A sad smile touched her lips. Ethan, I'm sorry. I never meant to betray you at first. But my parents, they kept talking and I got lost. When I successfully transferred the assets, a part of me was thrilled. But when you walked away without a fight, I felt confused. Life after you wasn't what my parents promised. It wasn't what I expected. Mark, he was a monster. The truth is, I regretted it a long time ago. Can you forgive me? I looked at her face, still beautiful despite everything, and shook my head. I will not forgive you, I said. You're not sorry. You've never been sorry. You want to know who you love, Claire? You love yourself. You love your family. You thought scheming against me was your ticket to an even better life. That's always been you, so you can stop the act. She pressed her lips together, dropping the subject. Ethan, whatever you say, it was my fault. But the baby is yours. All I ask is that you raise him. Please. I burst out laughing. It was a harsh, humorless sound. To think that even now she was still trying to manipulate me. I leaned closer to the glass. Claire, the baby is not mine. Have you forgotten? After he was born, Mark deliberately delayed filing for the birth certificate. He didn't trust you. He knew that after 3 months, a paternity test would be required. You saw the report, didn't you? The last bit of strength left her body, and she slumped in her chair. You knew. I smirked. Claire, I knew from the moment you told me you were pregnant. All of this, I let it happen. You needed time to execute your plan, and so did I. I stood up. The conversation was over. As I walked away, I could hear her screaming my name. I stepped out of the detention center and into the bright sunlight. It felt like being born again. I left Chicago and never went back. I heard later that Claire was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. The massive 9-figure debt fell squarely on her parents' shoulders. They considered suicide, I was told, but couldn't bring themselves to do it because of the child. For the rest of their lives, they will be working to pay off a debt that could never be repaid.